Hi everyone, welcome. How are you? Good, good. For those of you I don't know, for those of you I don't know, my name is Tim O'Donnell and I'm the Director of Education here at the Lake Dillon Theater Company. This is our educational panel series that we pick different topics to talk about throughout the year. And this particular panel is the collaboration between the town of Silverthorne and the Lake Dillon Theater Company, as we have just moved into the town of Silverthorne officially with this interim space that you're currently sitting in. So we have representation from the town of Silverthorne and the Lake Dillon Theater Company to talk about some of this, and it's going to be a great chance for you guys to ask questions about everything that's going on, all the happenings here in Silverthorne right now. So can I ask all four of you to introduce yourself, where you're from, and what your job is? Not where you're from originally, but which organization you're from.
Okay.
But if you would like to share that, you feel free to do so.
I think we have to now.
Good morning. I'm Joanne Cook. I'm the Recreation and Culture Director for the town of Silverthorne.
I'm Ryan Highland. I'm the town manager for the town of Silverthorne.
Josh Blanchard. I'm the executive director for the Lake Dillon Theater Company.
And I'm Chris Alleman. I'm the artistic director for the Lake Dillon Theater Company, and I'm from Oklahoma.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we throw it out to questions from you, I'd like to start with the town of Silverthorne. Joanne and Ryan, can you talk a little bit about the arts initiative in Silverthorne, how that started, where it's going, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, I think I'll let Joanne talk about specifically the arts initiative, and then I'll follow up and maybe backtrack a little bit on kind of the bigger picture of how we ended up here.
That's great.
Okay. Well, I think maybe contrary to popular belief, the theater and the arts initiative didn't actually start together, or one didn't come because of the other. They kind of happened at the same time. But with the role I play at the town with recreation and culture, is my title, but generally we've been doing a lot of recreation. We've been pretty heavy on recreation over the last many years. And I think that through our Economic Development Advisory Committee, I think a group of business leaders in our town kind of were brainstorming about the entrance to our community and the way it feels in our community. How are we going to attract new businesses? I think they, somewhere in that conversation they said, the way people do that is through arts and culture. We should start talking about that in Silverthorne. And somehow someone said, Joanne, your title has arts and culture in it. Let's do some culture. And we started thinking, hey, we probably should do a little more culture and arts and bring that to our community. We're ready for that next step. How do we do that? And the conversation at the very beginning started with the entrance to our community, right? And how it feels when you're coming into our community and how to get people past Wendy's, right? So that you don't go to Wendy's, you do the U-turn and you get back on the interstate. How do you draw people in? And there was actually a very concerted focus on what we now call River's Edge Park, and just visually increasing the appeal there. And so we started talking about placing a piece of art, perhaps a sculpture or something like that. And so we talked amongst ourselves as staff and said, how do we get that done? Let's make an art and public places committee. Let's try to put out a call for art. Let's choose something that can enhance the entrance to our town. Well, that kind of turned into my assignment, right? And so I started educating myself on that and going to, there's a lot of groups statewide, a lot of communities are doing this very, very well. And I started going to some meetings and it became apparent very, very quickly, oh no, we probably shouldn't just go out and buy a piece of art and put it in a park and say, here it is. All of these professionals were like, oh no, that's the best way to divide your community. You don't want to divide your community. You want to actually go out to your community, find out what does arts and culture mean to them? What do they want in their community? How can you enhance the vibrancy in a way that makes sense and resonates with the people that live here? And so then we embarked on this process of doing an arts and culture strategic plan, of which was adopted by council just early this January, just only a couple months old. It has a lot of exciting recommendations for our community. But at the same time, I'm going to pass it over to Ryan here, but at the same time we were having these conversations, here came an opportunity with the theater, and so they've kind of gone hand in hand. And so because of the timing, our arts and culture plan does have an emphasis on the theater, because that was a reality at the time. So they go together and they fit together very well, but the actual starts of our arts and culture in Silverthorne was a conversation about 4 years ago. It's coming from EDAC, by the way.
Yeah, and so this conversation has been going on, I think, since maybe July or August of 2013. So it doesn't feel like that long, but we've been talking for quite a while. Some of you may have heard this story before, but how we started the conversation, there was a need that the theater had because of the current facility that you had at the time was sort of in question, and you're outgrowing the space. And so one of the first places that we met at the time, we had kind of a question mark about the U.S. Forest Service building and were they going to continue to be a tenant there. And so one of the very first conversations or meetings that we had, we met in the parking lot at the Forest Service building and introduced ourselves and then said, okay, very quietly, I'm going to walk you through. They're a tenant of the towns. I should back up. I said, we'll walk through this building very quietly, and you can take a look at the space, but let's just be very quiet about this. And we walked through the building, and then when we got back to the parking lot, Chris and Josh said, just so you know, that was one of our biggest patrons who was at the front desk who said, hey guys, what are you doing here? So, yeah, so much for kind of being quiet about the fact that Silverthorne and the Lake Dillon Theater were talking to each other. So, bigger picture, we talked about arts and culture and how we really wanted to make that part of Silverthorne's DNA. We feel like we had, like Joanne mentioned, we had the recreation stuff down pat. We had the community involvement down pat. We've got all those great things, all of the support that we have from our community on our advisory boards, and a lot of those things that other communities really would be striving for. We had all that. What we were missing is a downtown environment that really matched the high quality of character of all of the people that are in this community. And when I say the community, that's beyond Silverthorne. That's taking in the folks who are in Summit Cove or Keystone or other folks that are looking for downtown. So when you're thinking about how do you create that vibrant downtown, which is something that Silverthorne's been looking to do for many years and has been making efforts toward that, there are a lot of different things that you need to consider, a lot of different components. And later I'll talk about some of the more nuts and bolts of urban renewal, and you need all those pieces. But one of the key things that you need are people. You can't have a vibrant downtown if there aren't people in your downtown. And you can't have a vibrant downtown if you don't have a great amenity, a catalyst, something that really triggers that activity. So we saw the opportunity. I think we can talk a little bit about the goals and the mission and the needs of both of our organizations all of a sudden started to line up. And that's where we started that conversation a couple years ago, saying, hey, this looks like we could really check a lot of the goals for both of our organizations, and this could be a really great partnership. So here we are today. I think it was, I just saw the press release from last year. It was a year ago Thursday that we publicly announced that we were in partnership to build a new performing arts center. So I think the driving need in Silverthorne is to create that downtown, and you do that through a fantastic catalyst and bringing people and animating a space, not just in the evenings when you have shows, but when you have daytime programming and youth programming, and you have offices on site, so you have comings and goings all day. So that's a little bit of the background of how we got here, I think.
Fantastic. Josh and Chris, can you talk a little bit about the history of how the organization has grown to the point where this became something of a real necessity in order to take the theater to the next level?
So many of you may not be aware, but the Lake Dillon Theater started as the Lake Dillon Foundation for the Performing Arts in 1993. The then board of directors was tasked with a fundraising initiative to help build the amphitheater, to provide quality programming for specifically this end of the county. A few years later, we began our youth theater workshop. A few years later, we took in an organization called the Black Coffee Theater Company that now, at that point, became the Lake Dillon Theater Company. And by the year 2000, the theater was operating year-round with concerts and youth program during the summer and theater occasionally throughout the winter months. By 2004, we had a full year-round theater season. We introduced Mountain Summer Stock in 2005. And by 2010, we had a dual-edged situation going on. One was we were selling out houses. We had a very robust summer season. Some of you may remember shows like Hair and Smokey Joe's Cafe in 2010. We had produced wonderful shows. Some of you may remember Equus or Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. But we didn't have any place to put people. Both our patrons as well as the people backstage. We had outgrown the building, and we were in a situation where we needed to really move forward or to maybe look at what we were doing and how we could sustain that from a financial and from an operational standpoint. So in 2012, we created a strategic plan that really served as the blueprint for what we felt we as an organization needed to do to serve these needs within our community. We identified what our core values were, of course, intimacy, quality, the high quality that people had come to know and appreciate and expect, diversity of programming. So year-round programming that include plays, comedies, dramas, musicals. The concert series was very important to our community. We had launched our cabaret series, which has become a very successful piece of what we do, and a really unique kind of thing that we do here in Summit County. And we realized that we need to continue with those things, but from an operational standpoint, we need to secure our finances. We need to become financially strong. We needed to expand our facilities. We also needed to have a stronger marketing plan so that people really understood what we were doing. So in 2012, we launched a strategic plan that kind of laid all this out, and we've been working to fulfill that. And one of the key things was to create some new partnerships, to build on the partnerships we already had, and to create some new partnerships. And so, as Ryan mentioned, in summer of 2013, we knew we were in a situation where not only did we feel that our building that we had been operating in for 20 years was too small, but the landlords of that building maybe had some different plans for that location. So we started thinking, okay, what are those next steps going to be? The Forest building didn't work. So we started talking about, okay, what does this look like? And that's, I think, the initiative where we started seeing, we do this image a lot, kind of putting the fingers together. And we started seeing how the missions of the two organizations and the vision of the two organizations might actually come together.
Good. We're actually going to jump right into questions because we really want to hear what you have to say. We want to know the things that you want to talk about. So does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask about any of this stuff? I know it's always hard to be first. Yes, right here in the back. So does the town? So with the new town center at Silverthorne, is there going to be a new post office or an inclusion of anything like that in all of the building that could happen in the future as part of this project?
Do you want that or not want that?
Yeah, right.
The post office is located where it's located right now, and I think that's probably where it will remain. Were there an opportunity to have that located somewhere else where you could really bring that energy in, that would be great. I had not anticipated a post office question.
It was a strong start, I felt.
We do get a lot of questions about the post office. We are not affiliated with the post office. We always remind folks of that. But it is a great example, like the U.S. Forest Service, like a theater, of things that bring people to a location and create energy. Sometimes it's not the most positive energy, but You know, I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of different components to making a successful downtown, and it's some art, some science, and probably some luck in some cases. But you need to have the amenities, you have to have the people, you have to have cultural offerings. I should mention, we're not starting from kind of scratch here. We do have the history of the town being very active in trying to create a sense of place and being pretty successful, at least on this side of the highway with the pavilion. And we do a lot of cultural programming there, and we have created, it's taken a while, but when you have the coffee shop and some of those things around there, we're getting a sense of place on that side of the highway. We need to transition that across the highway because we don't have that there. So in addition to bringing amenities, you need to make sure that you've got walkability. You need to make sure that you have, and we have this now thanks to the town council who just approved rezoning, you have to make sure that if you're going to invest, as we both are, in an amenity like a theater, that you don't end up with a gas station next to it or a fast food drive-through next to it. And so we have now zoning in place, again, thanks to the Planning Commission and the town council, that's not going to happen. So we've secured and ensured that vision that the community has. So for that town core area, you're going to get the uses that you want there. Now, on top of that, you need to make sure that those are built in a way that feels right to the pedestrian and not a suburban style development. So we've got, in addition to the zoning, you look at, okay, the buildings need to come up to the street. You need to do on-street parking. Concepts that aren't radical but feel a little radical for Silverthorne right now, like sidewalks, which we don't have in the downtown. I don't know how the last time any of you have strolled down on a Friday night, just decided to go strolling on Adams Avenue. Probably no one. There are a lot of folks in here that probably haven't even gone across the highway at 4th Street because there's just not that energy there. So those are some of the other components that I think we have to work hard on to make sure that we can deliver on this vision. And I think the community has really taken a lot of steps recently with the town council and other groups to make sure that all of those pieces are in place. And I think urban renewal as a funding mechanism, and like I mentioned, the design districts and the zoning, and all those pieces are there now. It took a few years, but those pieces are there now. I'm excited to see things start coming out of the ground in the spring with theaters and new restaurants and breweries. So that's a little bigger picture on some of the things that we need to do, and maybe move the post office.
Did you still have a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you address?
Can you talk? So maybe the theater. What's going to happen in the summer for concerts in the town of Silverthorne?
Yeah, so as Josh mentioned earlier, the Lake Dillon Foundation for the Performing Arts was formed to create this fundraising mechanism to help construct the amphitheater. And as a result of that, to produce what we now call the Sunset at the Summit concert series. And so the organization has been producing these concerts for 23 years now. And it's a very major part of what our organization does. And so it was always our intention to keep these concerts moving forward in some aspect. And we have been working with the town of Silverthorne about what some of these possibilities would look like. Now, obviously, we don't have that pristine kind of setting that the Dillon Amphitheater does have, because it is one of the most beautiful views and amphitheaters west of Red Rocks. I mean, it really just absolutely is. But we do have a lot of strong situations here in Silverthorne as well. But we don't want to just jump off the bridge trying to produce 10 beautiful concerts as we've been doing every year for the past 23 years. And so we actually have been sitting down with Joanne and her staff and looking at what this could potentially look like. So we have found another beautiful location in Rainbow Park. They've got that big, huge, beautiful field, and when you're looking in the right direction, a beautiful view of Red Mountain and Buffalo Mountain. And so this year we're gonna test the waters with doing 4 free concerts in the month of July. not July 4th weekend, but the subsequent 4 weekends after that. And we've got our bands booked. We're working on the logistics now. So it should be an exciting summer. And I don't know if you want to add anything.
It should be exciting.
I think that's a great topic because it represents that the partnership between the two organizations goes far beyond this building that we all talk about because we're so excited about it. There's a lot of different opportunities for us to partner with theater. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges is figuring out there are so many opportunities. How do we maximize this partnership and overlap programming and a lot of different things? And that's one area where we're delighted to have somebody who's got that expertise in programming concerts to partner up with us and bring that. I think long term, Rainbow Park it's a fantastic venue, but we are, if you look at the site plans for the Performing Arts Center adjacent to the pavilion, that's also a great space with the lawn there, and that lawn will be about the size of, kind of if you're familiar with the Riverwalk Center in Breckenridge, that lawn, that's about the space we'll have, and we think that could be great for concerts and other performances as well. So we're excited.
Well, and I will add just really quickly, here Chris and his staff and me and my staff are talking about these concerts, and right off the bat we say, okay, well, I've got this new arts and culture plan in hand, and it tells me to do everything I can to reach out to the broader community and find ways to engage people in a way that's new and exciting. And so I say, yeah, your concerts are great. It's a proven brand. People come. It's an experience they know about. Can we make it better? And can we draw a different audience, a new audience, something more diverse? How can I build on that headliner, which we all know, we want to come see Ron Ivory, right? He's coming, right? Mm-hmm. Right? So Ron Ivory's coming. People are going to come. What can I do before? Or what can I do during that? Or what can I do off to the side that's going to engage our youth in a different way or whatever? How can we use that platform of this known audience that's going to come and showcase some of our local talent? And get some of our kids on stage, or get one of our, the Bailey Folklorico dancers up on stage if you haven't seen them, at celebrations around the world. How do we showcase that and use this and just make it even better and make it feel more like a true community event, while also still hopefully drawing those visitors, but bringing them to Silverthorne? And me, I personally, I hope you will walk there, right? He's going, oh boy. He's like, I didn't know about that. This is in Paul's backyard. Maybe he can have the cookout before. But, I picture, oh my goodness, is there a whole group of people that wouldn't have ridden up the bike path or gotten in their car and driven? But now here are our neighborhoods. It's very walkable to get to Rainbow Park. Are people going to walk here? Are they going to ride their bikes here? And is it going to feel like even a stronger community event than it already is? I mean, it already is. If you go to the concerts, you see all the people right? But can we reach different people in a new way? And can it be intentional? So that's how I look at it.
Great.
Well, I think we talked about your yard and driveway, right?
It's like $20. You could have the sign. $20.
Yeah.
So just to confirm, the question on the table is, what is the parking plan for both maybe the theater and the town, especially around the town core, as this kind of growth is happening?
Right, and it is very much a short-term, long-term type of question. And long-term, I would love for whoever's sitting up here 20, 25 years from now to be having a community discussion about our parking problem, like Breckenridge, because that means they've been wildly successful and they've implemented a community plan that everybody wants to be a part of, and all of a sudden they have a parking problem. So I hope we get there someday. Short term, you're right, surface parking does take up a lot of space, and I know may not seem like an exciting thing, but at the town, we're pretty excited about some of the on-street parking that we've added to Rainbow Drive. Now I'm trying to remember, I think that was 50 or so spaces, which we were able to add. We had the width in the road that was already there, so it was a can of paint, basically. And so that is one of the solutions longer term for the downtown. If you do the same thing downtown, you can add over 400 spaces. that aren't there today. And what that allows is the success of that rezoning and the new designs that allow the buildings to come out to the property lines, and you're not having a sea of parking. Now, short term, those spaces aren't all there downtown yet. And there are spaces on Rainbow. We do have wonderful partners at the outlets of Silverthorne, and so there are some opportunities that are right there. But part of this, we've had some discussions about. It is to some degree kind of retraining the community that we're no longer kind of an auto-oriented downtown community where you pull up and park right at the front door. A lot of successful downtowns, you don't expect to do that, and we think that's part of what's coming here. You may have to do a little bit of walking to get to some of these spaces in the interim. So parking is very much something that we're thinking about. A big part of the success when we're talking about the Performing Arts Center will be coordination and management of the events that are going on at the same time. So if we have a wedding and we have a theater performance and maybe there's even something else going on, making sure that we're telling folks, here's the additional parking, here's where you go. We experienced that a little bit, if you'll recall, a few years ago when we had the ice castles that were right where the Performing Arts Center is going to be. And it took some work with traffic management, but directing people to different lots, and they feel like, well, I'm going way out of the way, and you told me to go over here, but then you show them, yeah, there's a little bridge right here, so you'll do a big loop, and then all you have to do is come across that pedestrian bridge. So it's an engineering project when you're talking about on-street parking. It's an education project when you want folks to know where they can park and get there. And it's a walkability project as well, making sure that we have the sidewalks and that the pathways are clear and that people can use all of that infrastructure that's there. So parking's always a balancing act.
I had a question right here in the back. Yes. So the question is the cost. Are you saying the cost to the people who live in the town, or just the cost in general? Yeah. So the cost and how it's increased and how that breakdown will go moving forward.
Sure. I think when you enter into a project, you come up with your best estimates of where you think you'll be. And what I can say are a couple things. One, the project hasn't grown in scope. The project is the size and has all the components that we started with. What has changed, unfortunately, is when we started that conversation a couple years ago, the economy has changed a little bit and the cost of construction has changed. So where we are right now, we have a $9 million construction project. The theater will be bringing 2.7 of that to the table, and the town will be bringing 6.3 million. Now, I think you mentioned, how can a small town afford to undertake a project like that? Fortunately, we punch well above our weight when it comes to the things that we're able to do. There are not a lot of communities of our size that would have a 60,000 square foot recreation center or 4 miles of a fantastic trail along a great river, which also costs millions and millions of dollars to create. So we're very fortunate that we can undertake this project well within, as we have other projects, our financial ability. It's an expensive project, but so was the recreation center, so was the trail, so was the pavilion. When you take bold steps to move your community forward, there's an expense associated with that. So, but at its base level, $9 million project, 2.7, 6.3 from the town.
No, don't get me wrong.
No, we have had for many years a finance director for several decades who's very conservative, and we make sure that we're not overextending ourselves. And we're in a great financial position because we have been conservative, that we're able to take advantage of this opportunity. I think, as much as we love these guys and the theater and all those pieces, it's definitely an economic development investment. We're not doing it just because we're theater lovers and it's fun. It's a long-term investment that when you're building a downtown, it's a great opportunity that's there.
Other questions? Yes, here in the front, in the white. Yes. So the question is, what's happening on the other side of the highway where the old Dillon Inn is, and as far as maybe even the Mountain Lion, which
Sure,
in the
sure.
hotel and all of that stuff?
Yeah, the really the block where, and we have one of the owners in the audience here today, the block that you're talking about, we're very fortunate because when you're looking at a block that big, a lot of times you might have 8, 9 different owners. Within that block, the town is one owner where we have the transit center. There's an owner of the Mint, the Mountain Lion, and the First Interstate. And then there's an owner out of Los Angeles of the ODI. I can tell you that all of us have been talking, meeting, and all 3 parties have an interest in redeveloping that property. So I think that we've called that one of the town's catalyst sites, and we see that as probably the first place where you'll see a significant new development in that downtown. Now, we have Angry James Brewery, you know, there's some smaller pockets, but as far as really having a big catalyst project, I think we're getting close to that point. And I mentioned urban renewal. That is an urban renewal area, and so that affords the opportunity to have financing to bring all the infrastructure that we need there, the sidewalks and the streetscape and all those types of things. So that is, I think, something that we'll see pretty shortly as far as getting some plans and different property owners working together to see redevelopment.
Great.
Rebuild the old Dillon Inn.
We'll see. I mean, I think that's one of the questions is, can we save some of the character that's there? Certainly the Mint is something that could be integrated into something great and save some of that community character that we have. So
So the question is the nature of the collaboration, right? Who owns the building? How does the theater play into that? What are the parameters of the collaboration?
Excellent. Great question. The theater will serve as the tenant for 30 years right off the bat. 20 years with 2 automatic 5-year extensions. The town will own the building, and we as the organization will manage basically all of the ongoings in the interior of the facility, as well as partner with the town with events and activities that happen in some of the outside space that Ryan was talking about. Now, just to share a little bit of statistics, from 2008 to 2014, we as an organization, the Lake Dillon Theater, experienced a tripling of our season pass sales, a doubling of our contribution line item for income, a doubling of our ticket sales. So we have some expectations or some best guesses on the trajectory of where we're going in terms of people coming in to see programs and being a part of what we're doing. We've seen an increase in our youth programs as well as our adult education programs. We've also doubled our program expenses to meet those needs in the community. So we have some mechanisms in place on how we're going to fill those spaces with programming. So there's 2 performance venues, there's 2 classrooms that we're calling labs that will have multiple uses. So we could host meetings, classes, dance classes, art classes, performances, etc. A large lobby space, some administrative space, etc. Now, we're working with the town to also come in and do some animation and some programming. In fact, we had a visionary meeting yesterday, details to follow, about some very exciting things that could be happening that the theater would host, but wouldn't necessarily be something that we would be completely in charge of. Because that's part of our mission. Our mission isn't just to do theater. Our mission is to provide quality, accessible performing arts for our visitors and our full-time residents. So we're looking at how we can partner with the town. We're also looking at how we can partner with other performing arts groups in Summit County. There are other groups in Summit County that we've already had some initial conversations with that would be hosting, or that we would be hosting, and they'd be presenting programming in the space as well. You mentioned gallery, and I'll let Joanne talk about some of the public arts initiatives that we want to be a part of, and that the building actually has some design elements to support.
Yeah, I mean, because thank you for representing it from your side. I mean, our side's similar but different. I mean, our town council has told us from the beginning, this is a public space. How are we going to animate it and make sure everyone's welcome? This is not just for, a season ticket holder at the theater. I mean, those folks are truly going to enjoy this building, I'm sure, but this is a public building owned by the town. Who's coming here, who's invited here, and how are they invited here so they know it belongs to them? And how do you intentionally do that? And number one is the doors need to be unlocked and open to the public. My office happens to be located in the recreation center, so I see all of the time people that are using the recreation center and they're not on a treadmill. They're hanging out in the lobby. They're using the Wi-Fi, they're meeting with friends, they're having coffee, or maybe they did go to a class or did work out, but then they're gathering in this public space, and it doesn't cost any money. It's a very comfortable place to be. And so we could use more spaces like that in our community. The recreation center, if you're a guest there often, you know, is quite bustly most of the time. And so here we have an opportunity for a different kind of public space. Again, that idea of expanding the breadth of what we offer as a community. So you can have a coffee there, you can use the Wi-Fi there, you can gather in this space, and it's another social offering in our community through a public building. And then, yeah, how do you do it? How do you make it artful? How do you make it interactive? How do you make it comfortable and feeling safe? Something that challenges people. It's a place that they do want to go have a coffee. And I think that that can be very different than the experience at the recreation center. So you have a choice now. And maybe you kind of feel like you belong at the recreation center or the lobby, or the library is what I was going to say, or the Performing Arts Center, or hopefully maybe a little bit of both depending on how you're feeling that day or who you're meeting with. But it is our challenge to make sure that this feels like a public space that's open to everyone. Exactly how we're going to do that, I don't know. I think that's part of the fun. But yeah, and then everything, to echo everything he said, that it's both the organizations working together to make sure the lab spaces, the outdoor patio spaces, and the green lawn, that we work together to program those effectively, that those also become a hub of activity. I mean, in the art plan, we needed to name it something. I don't know if this name will stick, but we're calling that whole area the cultural complex. You know, so you've got the river, the small businesses, the pavilion, the lawn, and the Performing Arts Center, and all of those things should be working together so that, again, you can park your car once and you have many things to do within walking distance.
So the question is that do we have any plans for does the theater and or town have plans for the 4th of July this year? I think the 4th of July is on a Sunday or a Monday this year, yes?
Yeah, I think from the town's perspective, it'll be interesting to see how this morphs over time, but we'll see if everyone agrees. 4th of July for Silverthorne is really the time where you go somewhere else and and you go to the parade, or maybe you went to 2 of them if your kids said we're going to 2, we're going to do Breck and Frisco, and then a lot of times you come back here for a while and you go and it's quiet, and then you go somewhere else. When you have a successful downtown, when you have these new amenities that will be coming online, I think there'll be more and more demand for, no, let's do this here now that we have the venue. Because right now we don't necessarily have the Main Street, we don't have those things. So I think that will change over time, and I think not just the 4th of July, but like with concerts and other things, we're trying the farmers market out. You're going to see more and more of that because we will have the space that feels right to do that in.
No, the NRO will be will this year in 2016 perform at the Dillon Amphitheater, as it has in the past. We are continuing a collaboration with the NRO in the town of Dillon with that concert. And then we'll see where anything goes in the future. You know, the town was really supportive and adamant that we continue this collaboration in 2016 because a lot of these plans were laid some time ago. And one of the reasons we chose not to do anything in Silverthorne on the 4th of July evening concert is because there is so much going on in the county on that weekend, and this is a new endeavor for all of us, and it's not an inexpensive endeavor for us to move a concert series that has been in one place for 23 years. So we also wanted to make sure that we were we did a risk analysis basically on what would be the best time to do that. Was it August? Well, things slowed down a little bit in August with the concerts. There are more people in July, so we had many discussions over many hours about this.
I will say living next door for 30 years different times.
I love this question. The question really is, where are you at with bringing the community in based on where you are in the process? You had that great event in the fall where we set up, it's in this space actually, stuff that was going on in the town and all of that stuff. Do you have anything planned like that? What is the plan for community involvement? How can they be involved?
Yeah, we've had so many workshops and open houses on so many different plans over the last couple of years. They're kind of hard. They all run together.
I know. I was like, which one was
that? It might have been the design districts or the rezoning or the open space plan or the parks plan or the comprehensive plan. I think the mayor's here today, and he likes to speak about how all of those plans that we have really link together. And so a lot of the foundational work to get that feedback, thanks to the community, is completed. And now it's really, in large part, up to the town, the private sector, to implement a lot of those visions. So one place where we're actually still in process, though, is with the Arts and Culture Strategic Plan, because that's where we don't have an established board like we have for economic development or planning or our parks and trails. So that's one of the opportunities where we will be soliciting the community as we try to, we're trying to figure out what we think the best board setup looks like, but soliciting interest on serving on that board. So hopefully a lot of the things that we'll be doing in the community will be groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings and those types of things. But we certainly are always interested in, we love to tell the stories. We love to have folks come to town hall and show, here's the master plan for downtown. One of the opportunities, we have a lot of college students that are working with us right now in actually mocking up some of these drawings and models to show what all these plans would look like when they're actually completed. Wow. So we've had a ton of community input. We have a fantastic community when we call out and say, hey, we'd like some input. In a lot of communities you don't get that. Here you really do. So it's been great.
Yeah, you really do.
Can the theater talk a little bit about that? Like how community input, like how you see it, or how you see it?
Well, when we first announced that we were going to be expanding the facility, we didn't necessarily know what it was going to look like. But we got a lot of feedback from our patrons and our donors. Don't go too big was the first thing that many people said. And we said, rest assured, intimacy is a core value. It's not just what we say or what we do, but it's who we are. So really, we'll keep that intimacy. I hope you'll take a look at some of the pictures, because you'll see that in the two performance venues, one of them is about the same size as our former venue, and yet it will even seat maybe one or two less because of the way the doors are configured and those kinds of things. The other venue is about twice the size and could seat a little bit more than twice as we continue to grow. So intimacy was a key value. Quality is a key component that we keep hearing. We love the performers, the quality of performers, the quality of shows that you do, the level of detail on the sets. One of the great things about intimacy is that you're up close and personal. From a design standpoint, that's a challenge because you can't cut corners. You have to have a really well thought out, well executed design for scenic purposes, for costumes, etc. And then diversity. We've had, our patrons want to see the year-round programming. Our summer musical season is our most successful and also our most expensive program. And we have some supporters of that program here today, and they continue to be a part of that. And also accessibility with free programming. People that want to come and be a part of concerts, panel discussions like this, ways in which people can get engaged and be a part of the discussion. So we're taking that feedback. We don't just nod and say, oh yeah, sure, and then go on and do something different. We really love to hear what people have to say. And we've had some really passionate responses and some excited responses. So I feel like we are taking taking folks' conversations. And just like Ryan said, we will sit down and show you the plans and talk with you about our plans. Just come let us know.
That's awesome. Yes, John. So twofold question. What is the town's expectations on programming, and who has artistic control of said programming? And how many days or nights a year is there going to be a theater activity? Maybe one step further, like how many nights a year could there just be, programming that is activity that is programming, not just public space?
Well, I'll start with artistic control. I know that from a staff perspective and a town council perspective, we wanted nothing to do with that. For political reasons, we really don't want to be in the business of trying to decide what shows you're doing, and your success is built upon doing a wide variety of shows. Some of them push the envelope, and I think we all acknowledge that that's good for a community conversation. It's great for arts and culture. So artistic control remains 100% with the theater. The town will not have any influence over that. As far as an expectation of programming, I think we are entering into a new facility, it's a new location, and so there's some unknown as to, I think we all think it'll be wildly successful, but we've talked about at a base level, the town really would like to see what you've been doing already. And I think that's the baseline of, if we could see those number of shows and continue just the level of success that you had even in the old facility, great. And I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges that we face is, okay, there are so many different opportunities for new programming that we could all do. We'll have to see what comes from that, and the concerts may be part of that. We certainly know from the town's perspective that folks come to you all the time and probably say, hey, it'd be great if you did this, and it'd be great if you did this, and there are a lot of opportunities, but we can't do everything. So I think we will ease into finding out what those new opportunities are with the partnership.
So we currently program, and the number is going to be a little bit rounded, but around 240 days a year. And on some of those days, it's multiple things. For example, on any given Saturday during the summer, we have had a theater performance, a concert, an educational panel, and a children's youth workshop, all in one day in the span of 9 hours. And we have two today. For example, we have a show tonight and a panel discussion today. I think the expectation is, and agreed upon all, is that we're going to carry that forward and probably expand on that somewhat. We all know there are, we do have a shoulder season, we do have a mud season. We animate during those, but those will be probably a little bit slower time because most of you in this room get up and leave town and nobody's coming to town. But I think the expectation with this facility is that as we move forward, you can come to this Performing Arts Center on any given weekend night, and there be at least two, perhaps three things going on. So we have a commingling of audiences and patrons, and a commingling of performances.
And it's a little bit of a side note, but we really truly believe there's impact to having the offices on site as well. Hopefully not 365 days a year. I hope you take like one holiday off. But really darn close to that. I mean, the recreation center is closed 3 days a year. Every other day, it might be beautiful weather outside and really our use might be low, but there are so many employees that it just takes to have those doors open. And the same is true with this Performing Arts Center. With the offices there, with the set construction there, with deliveries coming and going, with actors and actresses coming and going, whether there's a show or not, there are bodies coming and going here in our town center. It's just one more step of vibrancy. During some shows, some run certain times a year, it's going to be a lot of people, having lunch at Witch Witch. And some days may be just a handful, but it's more than what we have now, and it's just another step of bringing more bodies to that area.
Well, I want to just add, since we've been in this space for a few weeks, I think we've doubled the income at Witch Witch just with our own staff.
And Starbucks too, probably.
And Starbucks.
And Chipotle.
And Chipotle. And I just want to add one quick note about the selection for programming. We on the staff level, really under Chris's direction, spend a lot of time to curate a season that is very specific to our community's needs. We sort of have a short list that maybe has 15 to 20 shows on it. And Chris looks at, okay, what are we trying to accomplish this year? What are some of the themes that are happening both on a community level, but also on a national or even global level? We can have that. How do we have that diversity? How do we meet the folks that love the needs of the folks that love to sit and laugh and be entertained, but also the folks that really kind of want to think and have a community dialogue or a discussion about important topics and are willing to feel a little uncomfortable as they work through some ideas. When we look at our education programming, Tim and Chris spend months really thinking about, okay, what is it that we're going to do? So we take the community's needs and thoughts into consideration, and now we're just having I don't know how many times we've asked Joanne, what do you think about this idea? And how that's gonna play.
Right. So twofold question: how does the pavilion, being so close to the new building, work in conjunction? And if we're going to go have coffee in the lobby, is there a plan for that is not Red Buffalo, which is relatively close?
Yeah, I think the plan is please go to Red Buffalo, for now at least. The liquor concessionaire is a little bit different. We have always had an outside provider for that service, but we did have turnover in that service 1 year ago, and the town is now doing that. So the town holds the liquor license in the pavilion right now, and the plan is that the theater will hold the liquor license in the Performing Arts Center, just for simplicity's sake. So the town is in a position that we can be flexible and work with these folks. So if we have an event that's large enough and is in multiple facilities and maybe even outside as well, then we can provide that service amongst ourselves. So that's a good position to be in. It can be a revenue source if managed correctly. So we feel good about that. And to look at the use of the pavilion in a little bit different way than maybe what you asked, through the arts and culture plan, I have to tell you, there was a kind of a challenge there about, hey, what are the best and greatest uses of some of our resources here in the town so that you're truly engaging the community and giving spaces for people to cross paths, interact, and again, that increasing the vibrancy. When you look at the use of the pavilion right now, we started a few years ago noticing that people like to have weddings there. Then more people like to have weddings there. And we said, wow, this is making some money. Maybe we should really put some effort into that. And I had a separate meeting yesterday with our pavilion staff that I was recalling the big day when we realized we had 50 weddings per year. This summer, we have over 100 weddings at the pavilion. This is kind of fantastic. It's economic development. It brings bodies to our community, and it does increase vibrancy in that space. But those are private functions. They are not community functions in most instances. And so we're going to be looking at the pavilion and saying, what is the balance there? How do we say this is what's happening at the Performing Arts Center? This is what can happen in the lawn. This is what can happen at the pavilion. And don't get me wrong, we have a ton of community events at the pavilion. We do. And I hope you know that. I see head shaking. So it's a good thing, but can we do it different and better? And I think we absolutely think that inserting performing arts right adjacent to that gives us an opportunity to really look at that and question what are we doing with this resource for our town and what makes sense. I think that weddings, private rentals do make sense at that building at a certain level, and how do we define that? And it's going to be a process over the next many years to really look at that, but it's an opportunity to take the pavilion's use to the next level in regards to what it does for our community.
Yeah, the question goes back again to transportation, and I think maybe in the interim we've got fantastic partners with a lot of our businesses here, and the outlets at Silverthorne are one. And so we recently had that experience with the pond hockey tournament. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the outlet said, hey, we'd love to shuttle some of those folks around because it gives them exposure. And so figuring out that circulation, not just parking and pedestrian activity, but maybe some shuttling and figuring out public or private or partnership opportunities, I think is a good idea.
So we're running out of time. So I have one final question that I want to ask the four of you about the future, and it's a little twofold. One, what are you most excited about in moving forward as all of these changes are being implemented? And two, what do you think it's going to look like in 10 years? And you have to limit your answer to like a minute. So think wisely, and whoever would like to start, who feels inspired,
Well,
should
I have
start.
an answer because I've given this answer, so I'll start in case you guys need to think. The most exciting thing for me is, I told this to town council when we adopted the arts and culture plan, is, sometimes, I've been working at the recreation center close to 17 years now, right? And it's kind of the successful little bubble that I live in, and I think I know everyone, right? Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I know everyone. Everyone comes to the recreation center, of course. Like, you kind of have this in your head, and I hate to admit that out loud. And then I go and do this arts and culture plan, and I came back to council and I said, oh my goodness, there's a ton of people out there that I do not know at all. And they don't know me from squat. And guess what? Some of them haven't even been inside the recreation center. And here it's this great community amenity, and I see all these people appreciating it, hundreds per day. And yet, you know what? We are not tapping into everyone. We aren't. And that seems so, yeah, duh, after the fact, right? But that's what's most exciting to me, is kind of this whole, embarking on a whole new group of people, a whole new set of interests, and they make up such a valuable part of our community. Of course, there's a ton of crossover too, but it just makes me invigorated, and it's a new chapter for Silverthorne, truly. I've met so many people in this short amount of time, and the other folks that I'm planning to meet and that I know are going to come forth and make our community even stronger. It's really exciting. So for me, there you go. In 20 years, what's it going to look
10
like?
years. 10 years.
Oh, 10.
Don't, yeah, not 20.
Well, I really believe it'll be more vibrant, and I think it'll be more welcoming, more open, and we'll have more social offerings, which are the three things that we know help people be more attached to their community and have that community pride. And that's what we want to do. We just want to strengthen that. It already exists, but I think it's going to be stronger.
I think I'm most excited about all of the foundational pieces that we needed to do that started, really even a decade ago. Those are all in place. And the Urban Renewal Authority being a huge one, because that's funding. And so that is one part of the equation that's always been missing. The vision has been there. It's been refined and really turned into an excellent vision over the years, but you've got funding there. But I'm just excited because we're right on the cusp of it, and it's something that this community has deserved. My task as the town manager is trying to deliver on the policies and the goals of the town council, and the town council wants a downtown that this community deserves and has deserved for a long time, so that when it's a Saturday morning like this morning and we decide we want to go out and stroll and have those community meeting places, and maybe we end up in the lobby at the theater, that we have that, because we have a little bit of it right now. We have some of our gathering spaces are maybe a little less traditional, like the lobby at the recreation center. It works great, but we want that downtown, and we're this close to delivering on it, and to be that close is exciting when you've worked on it for so many years.
Very cool.
Well, for me, I'm excited about the vibrancy and the visibility in this new, beautiful venue. It seems like almost every night we have people who come to the theater who say, I've been here for 20 years as a resident in Summit County. I didn't know you existed. And I just think, where have you been? But it's like Joanne's experience. And we all do sort of function in our own bubble. And there's so many different people in Summit County that are here for different reasons. So I'm excited because this facility is very visible, and it's going to allow for that vibrancy to carry through to so many different demographics. In 10 years, I believe that we'll have this sustained programming, this expanded programming with the financial security that we need, so that we can do what we do and not worry about it so much from a managerial or from a financial standpoint.
I think I'm most excited about, it's one of our core values, that diversity of programming. I think it's going to allow the Lake Dillon Theater Company, in collaboration with the town of Silverthorne, to provide a larger spectrum of programming that we currently or recently couldn't provide, from not just theater or music, but dance, performance art, all types of things that now will be allowed to do. And I think also the Lake Dillon Theater Company has just recently began to discuss diversity, not in programming, but diversity inside of our programming as well. And one of the initiatives that we're talking about right now, we're actually more than talking about it, we're starting to program, is broadening the topics of our plays, broadening the playwrights, looking at more female playwrights, looking at more diversity playwrights, and making that a stronger force of what we do. Even inside of casting, trying to be aggressive in making sure that our casting, when it allows, we are as diverse as possible. Really look at this idea of blind casting, to where a person of any race or minority could play any role. Some instances it's not going to happen, but we're really trying to be aggressive with this stance. And I'm excited that we're going to have the resources to be able to fulfill all of these things. And I think in 10 years, I don't know, will any of us still be here? I guess.
That's 2026, if anyone's doing the math.
I'm looking forward to that regional Tony Award, I guess.
Yeah. Well, everyone, we want to thank you so much for being here.